Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I'm joined by Logan Glaser of RT Sports. Logan, good to be with you once again on the show. Appreciate you coming on as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Logan, if you can believe this is what we're going to talk about today. We have had our first fantasy championship draft already. So we thought it would be interesting. This is the first draft of the year on our site. So we thought we would bring it up, talk about it, talk about the picks, what we thought about it, interesting picks. Just it's kind of the baseline for our entire site, pretty much. It's a
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there are so many benefits of drafting early. There's so many pros and cons both ways that you kind of look at it. If you should draft before, should you draft later? I believe it was 2 years ago that we had a TFC winner draft in March or April.
yep.
With that last year it was September. So um, results kind of vary each year with drafting early versus drafting a week before the season starts. There's just a lot of unknowns about where players will land. I think you get better sleeper picks if you're drafting early, but there's also risk potentials of big injuries that happen. So
There could be wasted picks too with guys that people think are going to be starting. Like one of them that comes to mind that I was just looking at was Tajay Spears. Like he's likely going to be the starter, I guess, in Tennessee if Derrick Henry moves on. But if he's not, if they end up drafting someone high that they want to make their starter or sign someone, I think he went in the fifth round of this draft. I mean, that's kind of a wasted pick. So that's the other way you can look at it too.
yeah, absolutely. But then you get guys going in rounds like 10 through 12 that if a starter gets injured
Yep.
before, then they're the starter and you get a huge value pick. Whereas right before the season starts, they might be going in rounds 3 and 4. So
That's
you
true.
can
Very
definitely look
true.
at it both ways.
And people always emerge in training camp as well, end up, playing a larger role than people thought they might do. So all different variables here, but it's going to be fun to look at. But before we get into that, though, people can sign up for the TFC already if they want to. Just go to rtsports.com. You can click on that Money League link and you can see all the different options we have. We usually have a draft or around a draft a night at this time of the year, correct? For the
Correct. Yeah,
TFC?
usually about a draft a night with that, and then we've also got 3 slow drafts, up in the lobby
Okay.
that you can find as well, that are also pretty popular. Just you can take your time with those selections, 2, 4, and 8 hours per pick with that.
For sure. And it's baseball season too. We have all sorts of different leagues going off. Our best ball championship, our RTFFBC or RT I always mess
FBC.
FBC, that's it, Fantasy Baseball Championship, sorry. But
Yeah, that
that's
one's,
fun. I mean
25% sold out, so that
wow.
one should definitely sell out as it does every year with that. 9 leagues left to sell for those.
Yeah. For sure, it's a great championship, a lot of fun. We have different price points too if you wanna play other leagues. We have points leagues, we have roto leagues, you can do best ball leagues, you can do our new home run showdown, which is a lot of fun. We might have to talk about that on a show, maybe do a draft ourselves. I think that could be fun, but it's an awesome contest. It's just you wanna pick up the best home run hitters at every position and try to win, and there's no lineup management. It's just 4 teams. Drafts take like 15 minutes. There's different price points. I think it's awesome. It's been a lot of great feedback so far on that. It's really popular. It's an
Yeah,
awesome
it's
contest.
super simple. You don't have to manage it, as you mentioned. It's best ball with that. So even if you don't have a good knowledge base of baseball, you just go with the guys that are going to hit home runs.
Yeah.
And I do think we will be coming out with something similar for football. So keep an eye on that with
Ooh,
touchdowns scored. So I
nice.
think that will be a fun format as well.
For sure. Everybody likes different leagues. There's always everyone's trying to innovate and do different things, and I think that's great because get a little monotonous with some of the same leagues you do over and over, and it's good to do these ones where you don't really have to manage your roster as well. It's good to pick up those type of leagues. So we'll be looking for that. So let's talk about this league now, Logan. The first fantasy championship draft on our site for the year. I'll bring it up so everybody can see it. I think the big thing that stands out right away, first pick in the draft was Brees Hall. He went ahead of Christian McCaffrey. I think most people probably have Hall second after McCaffrey, but he goes first overall here. A little bit surprising to you?
Yeah, I think it's surprising me just because McCaffrey's going to be. I mean, we saw this year he averaged over 20 points per game with that, and it's essentially a lock with that every single week. But I mean, Brees Hall, I think, is the obvious number 2 running back. I would slot him probably in that 2 to 5 range in drafts, but if he's your guy and you get the number 1 pick.
I agree. I think we get caught up in ADP too much and all that other stuff. If there's guys you want on your team, get them. No one's 100% correct in these rankings. If they were, it'd be very easy to play fantasy football, but it is not a sure thing. So if there's guys you want to target, go get them. I'm totally fine with going Hall 1. I mean, he had a huge year last year without a good quarterback. So if he gets Aaron Rodgers back, they upgrade offensively a little bit, maybe around the offensive line, get another receiver with Garrett Wilson. I mean, that offense is looking a lot better, and he could be even better. And he had a huge year last year. He's a young back, third year in the league, so he's definitely got in the upswing. And McCaffrey, we know, always has injury concerns. He's been better the last couple seasons, but throughout his career, it's kind of been a factor. And he's another year older, so that could be another reason why this owner went with Brees Hall over McCaffrey. Overall, in the first round, though, Logan, just 4 running backs, 8 receivers. So that kind of stood out to me a little bit. Everybody wants to kind of play it safe with these receivers going high. Your thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, as we kind of seen in other years, receivers have kind of been more dominant in the first round, kind of overtaking running backs, whereas a couple years ago it used to be 8 running backs and then maybe 4 receivers with that. But with this first round, I really feel comfortable with anyone through 1 through 8. Up until Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think those are kind of interchangeable. With that, again, we've got Justin Jefferson going 4, Tyreek Hill 5. These are just absolute studs going 1 through 8. Once it gets to Kyron Williams, Nakua, Brown, and Wilson, I think it's a little bit of a drop off. I think those are still those picks at those selections. Garrett Wilson might scare me a little bit. But again, if Rodgers comes back and has a good season, then he's the number 1 wide receiver there. But again, I think the drop off is after Amon-Ra St. Brown at
Yeah,
1.8.
that's really interesting. You bring that up, Logan. That's a great point. It could be a factor in when people want to have their picks, but it's a good point. I think it's very fair. I'm a little bit worried about Kyron Williams. I think he's talented, but you know how they cycle through backs there a lot in Los Angeles, so it worries me a little bit. I think he's good, and I don't think last season was a total fluke, but I don't know. I'm not convinced he's that, top 5 running back just yet, but maybe you'll prove me wrong. You have any thoughts on Williams?
Yeah, I'm kind of the exact same way. His yards per carry weren't great, but he has a lot of receptions in that
Yep.
backfield, which definitely helps that again. But as you mentioned, they kind of do cycle through running backs. It wouldn't surprise me if they go out and maybe even draft a running back as well. Maybe with a later pick, just have it as a running back 2 in that backfield. But I could definitely see them taking a running back in rounds, maybe 5, 6 in the NFL draft.
For sure. So the second round, we see our first tight ends off the board, and Sam Laporta went ahead of Travis Kelce. That happened in the rankings this year as well. Laporta finished tight end number 1 for fantasy owners. So I guess that's not really a huge surprise, but it's just interesting to see that on paper now. So Kelsey's finally fallen back just a little bit. I mean, overall, his season wasn't great. He was tremendous in the playoffs, but I think his age started to show a little bit. He wasn't playing as much either. If you noticed in the playoffs, he was coming out a lot, which is why he had that shouting fit on the sideline. But he's slowing down a little bit. So I'm okay with taking Laporta ahead of Kelsey. What?
Yeah, I'm the
Same
exact
way?
same way. I think I
Okay.
am going to be fading Kelsey in almost all my leagues. Just with his age at that position, we kind of started to see it as you mentioned last season with him, and it's a long season compared to those just playoff spurts with that. So I think I'm going to be fading him overall. I'd feel much more comfortable with another tight end such as Laporta, even Trey McBride. I think I would take him over Kelsey as well.
Yeah, speaking of tight ends, I don't want to move around too much, but McBride was the 4th tight end off the board. I like him a lot. I just don't know. I'm not. I guess he is a top 5 tight end, but that seems pretty early in round 4 for him. But what's your thoughts on
Yeah,
McBride in
it's
round
definitely
4?
early. He did have some monster games and finished the season great. Let's see, after week 8, he had 25, then he had a 21, 22, 20, 10, 12. So, I mean, he definitely has capability of putting up points. It'll be interesting to see him with a full season of Kyler. as well in that offense. A tight end that definitely kind of stands out to me is Brock Bowers, also going round 8.
Yep.
Um, it'll be interesting to see where Bowers falls in the draft. Which team will take him? Will he be kind of like Kyle Pitts, who went really early in the NFL draft and has amounted to nothing for fantasy value? But he could have a bounce back with the coaching change in Atlanta. But
Yep.
um,
Yeah. I mean, I think Sam Laporta gave everybody hope that rookie tight ends can have huge seasons. So I think that's why Bowers goes in round 8. He's highly touted. People think he could be a real stud, but like you said, you just don't know where he's going to land. He's a tight end, round 8. It's a kind of a boomer bust pick, in my opinion. Could end up being a good one for that team in round 1. I also wanted to talk about the next round after that. We see our first QBs off the board, 3 of them. You go Josh Allen's the first one, then Jackson and Hurts. So I think that's kind of how people think it's going to play out a lot. You could switch Hurts and Jackson and Mahomes. I think they're kind of interchangeable. I think most people think Allen is number 1, but so the elite QBs starting to go in rounds 3 and 4. I think that's going to be pretty standard this year. I think this is going to play out this way a lot. What do you think?
yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think last year I went QB pretty early overall, and I think my strategy is going to change this year. I just think there are so many good QBs on the board. When you look around, Jordan Love went round 11, and he
Yeah,
finishes
that's
QB
crazy.
5. That's just crazy. I mean, you also have Brock Purdy in round 12, and he averaged 20 points plus a game. You got Burrow and Richardson round 7, Justin Herbert round 9. So there's a lot of these top quarterbacks that are falling. I mean, you got Trevor Lawrence round 12 as well with that. So there's a lot of QBs that can put up points that I would feel much better taking in rounds 6 through 12 rather than go take someone in round 3 and sacrifice a star position player.
So
Um,
my strategy changed a little bit this year where I did try to get one of those elite guys in some of my leagues, which I normally don't do, but that stood out to me as well, Logan. I really thought the depth was tremendous for the QB position. Like you mentioned, I mean, even Lawrence, like I know he wasn't good for the Jags, but he was still a top 10 fantasy QB and he went in round 12. Same thing with Purdy, even Jared Goff. He was very productive. Kirk Cousins, another good one. The Jordan Love one in round 11, that really surprised me. I thought he would get a lot more, uh, a lot more hype going into this season after his breakout year. I mean, he's just going to get better. He's young. He's on a good team with a lot
yeah,
of young
QB number 5
playmakers.
last year. I mean,
Yeah,
he put up insane numbers when you look at his stats with that. He finished with a 26, 31, 22, 25. I mean,
I think that owner in round that the owner that took him in round 4 had a tremendous draft with the QB position, going Richardson in round 7, who has a huge ceiling, but a little bit of an unknown after his injury season this year. He just played a couple games, but then he backs him up with Love. So I thought that was super smart. And I think he did a good job with that QB position. That really kind of stood out to me.
yeah, I agree. I really like those 2 selections there.
So round 3, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. So Marvin Harrison Jr. went in round 3, pretty much the middle of round 3. Uh, I don't know. He's super talented. People like him, but there's not even, I don't even know if he's the consensus number 1 overall receiver. The guy from LSU, whose name is not, I can't think of right now. Is it, shoot? Oh, Neighbors. That's it.
Yeah,
Malik
Neighbors.
Neighbors. Some people
Neighbors went
think
round 6.
some people think he could go ahead of Harrison, but man, Marvin Harrison in round 3. We just don't see rookie receivers. I mean, Puka Nakua had a kind of season that nobody expected last year's record breaking, but normally you don't get elite rookie receivers. So I just don't know if I can take Marvin Harrison in round 3. You think that's a little early, or are you okay with doing that?
I think it really depends on where he falls to, which team drafts him. I think that's going to be a huge question mark if he gets set up with a good young QB um, and the other wide receivers on their team. Will he be the first option? Will he be second option? A lot is going to come down to that. If he goes to Chicago, if they do trade out of that number 1 pick and move down, um, It'll be interesting because paired up with DJ Moore, and then who will be their quarterback? Would they keep Fields? There's just so much unknown, and where your player goes, that's a huge factor. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest factors that you can have with that and kind of
I
make or break
agree.
a player.
That kind of overall in this draft, I felt like a lot of rookies went probably earlier and more plentiful than a lot of drafts as well. Because if you think about it, not many rookies make that huge of an impact, but there were a ton of them taken in this draft, especially that first team took Bowers, then Adunze, if I'm not pronouncing his name wrong, I apologize. Brian Thomas, Troy Franklin, Jalen Wright, Braylon Allen, Roman Wilson. I mean, that team just loaded up on rookies. I mean, they're boomer bust picks because, like you mentioned, you don't know where they're going to land. You don't know what situation they're going to be in. But I just feel like this draft had a lot of rookies getting drafted. And that kind of worries me because I'm okay with taking a couple, but I just don't want to load my team with them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I kind of like taking rookies near the end of drafts, just because of the uncertainty with them, and you're not wasting a huge position player with them. So, as you see, Team One they took several rookies after round 12 with that, and I kind of like that strategy, kind of loading up on them at the end of the draft. You get your star players at the beginning, and then you can take your risk at the end with that. And if one of them goes off, then you just pair them in with your star players.
Yep, that makes more sense to me as well. So, anything else really stand out to you, Logan? I mean, one pick I see that kind of jumps out to me a little bit is Brian Robinson in round 7 as his first running back taken. I don't know how I feel about that because I'm not convinced he's an RB1. I could see them bringing someone in, but that pick kind of worries me. Anything stand out to you?
One that really stood out to me was Tony Pollard going in round 7. Um, Last year, he was going round 1.
Yep.
Um, with that, I know he didn't have a great season. He actually had a pretty bad season overall. He still finished running back 14. He mentioned that he didn't feel fully healthy until week 11, which he performed a lot better after week 11. He finished the season with a 16, 21 point performance. So I really kind of like him at
You
round
don't know
7.
where he's playing yet either. He's another one of
That's
those
true.
guys.
That is a big
He's a free
concern
agent, but
for that.
I'm guessing he's gonna land a starting role somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be exciting if he went to someone like Houston or something like, because I think they gotta bring in a running back, the
Yeah,
Texans.
that could absolutely be a great that would probably be a perfect scenario for him, with
I
CJ
agree.
Stroud, especially as a pass catching back, with that. So I would
Kind of a
really like
major
him just switching over to Houston there.
yeah, kinda like a one-year deal, kinda make it or break it type thing to get his career going again. I could see that happening, but I could also see the Texans drafting a back kinda early to get their franchise back to go with Stroud. So they're one team I'm really gonna keep an eye on this offseason because they have some flexibility to add players, if I'm not mistaken. And,
Mhm.
they got one of the best QBs in the game. So should be exciting. He went in round 6. He was the 5th QB off the board. So we didn't mention him. And that owner got Dak Prescott in round 8. So, like you said, the QB position, you can get some good players there after those elite guys are gone. Kind of interesting to see how that plays out this year. Anything else you want to mention, Logan, before we get out of here? Any other picks, maybe later in the draft or
Yeah, one of my favorite sleepers, I would probably say, is Chase Brown going round 11. We
yep.
saw it towards the end of the season. He got a lot more work in Cincinnati. Joe Mixon's getting up there kind of in age. Chase Brown averaged over 8 touches per game after week 13. That's when he started getting involved. And he did well when he got touches. He was a very explosive player, found the end zone a couple of times, had some breakout runs. So I really like him in round 11. I think he's probably one of my favorite running back sleepers for where he's being drafted.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I kinda like J.K. Dobbins in round 13.
yeah,
I was high on him last year. Again, another devastating injury for him, so you don't know how he's gonna return, but he's talented. He's still pretty young too, so that's a good risk reward pick at that point of the draft, in my opinion. So, kudos to that owner for taking him there. It could turn out well for him. All right, Logan, that's a review of the first TFC draft on our site. It was really fun taking a look at that. Those owners did a great job. of setting the bar for the rest of the owners on our site. So we have drafts going off all the time here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. TFCs, you can get in right now, and also all of our baseball leagues. So baseball is fast and furious at this point. Pitchers and catchers have reported. That's exciting. Baseball season, I think I saw, is it 42 days away? Something like that?
Yeah, it's March 20th.
March
So
20th. Okay.
right about that with that.
Yeah, I think it's 40 something. Whatever. I don't know the math. There's 29 days in February now this year, right? It's a leap year, I think, right? There's not 28. So another extra day there. So either way, baseball season's right around the corner. So you can start drafting on our site. Go to rtsports.com, get in one of those baseball leagues, our big championships, you name it. We offer it here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. Logan, thanks for coming on, talking with me. Really appreciate it. It was really fun breaking down this draft today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
And thanks to everybody out there for watching. Good luck in all of your upcoming baseball drafts and all your drafts this year and leagues. Check us out at RealTime Fantasy Sports, rtsports.com. This has been Jeff Paur with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.